Hello, and welcome to the right place. My name is Dr. Roper, and today I want to talk to you about research and documentation. This presentation is not meant to tell you everything there is to know about research, but basically to present to you some principles of research that will hopefully help you get you started. Today we're going to talk a little bit about finding sources, evaluating sources, integrating sources, and documenting sources. And there's one thing that I need everyone to understand, and that is just that research takes time. You really need to just prepare yourself for the understanding that research takes time, and you're going to have to give yourself the time that is necessary. Go ahead and assume that the amount of time that you think it will take to do the research is going to be probably more than that. Go ahead and double the amount that you think that it will take you to do it, because it probably will take longer than you think. Expect to make trips to the library, and that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to physically go there, especially in this day and age, but assume that you're going to need to go to those library resources, because honestly, those are going to be the best ones out there. Then you're going to need to allow yourself the time that it takes to not only find the materials, but also the time that it takes to read those things that you find. Now, it's going to be really important that you begin with a question. Ask yourself, what is the key question or problem that my project is going to grapple with? Think about the conversation that you want to join. Remember that the subject area that you're studying has been written about and perhaps even debated long before you got here. Your first step is to see what others have said on this topic already. And the idea is not to look for the sources that are saying what you are saying, but rather your goal is to listen and compare the different perspectives that are out there on this subject. The reality is that we do research all the time. We ask questions about topics all the time in order to seek out answers, and we debate about those answers all the time. What fast food joint has the best French fries? We argue about that, right? And we do research in order to find the answers. We ask questions, we collect data, and we make comparisons. We even have to define our terms. So in order to determine who makes the best French fries, we have to define what we mean by best. What qualifies a French fry place to be the best? Is it the customer service, or is it the quality of the potatoes? Is it the way the French fries are cut, or how deeply they are fried, what kind of oil they use? And then we'll argue about the places that we go to get those French fries. And we may limit or broaden the scope of our study. We may determine that our comparison will be between 3 places, McDonald's, Wendy's, and Burger King. Or maybe we'll broaden our scope and expand it out to other restaurants that we find to be our favorites. And then we have to determine how we're going to use our results in a study such as this. What will the outcome determine? The place that we'll go with our family, or where we'll tell our friends that they should go? The results of our research will have specific impact and outcomes. And so this is the same type of thing that research does. This is the reason we do research, because it has a specific purpose. And we always have a specific audience in mind. And so in order to determine what it is that we're trying to accomplish, we need to think about the purpose and the audience that our research is intended for. And so we need to think about good research questions. And those good research questions have to, first of all, be clear. They should provide enough specifics that one's audience can easily understand the purpose without needing additional explanation. Our research questions should be focused. They should be narrow enough that they can be answered thoroughly in the space that the writing task allows. They should be concise, easily expressed in the fewest possible words, but they should also be complex. That is, they should not be answerable with a simple yes or no, but require synthesis and analysis of ideas and sources in order to be answered. In order to determine which place makes the best French fries, we're not answering yes or no, is it McDonald's? We're debating, is it better to go to McDonald's or Wendy's? So a good research question has to be arguable. Potential answers are open to debate rather than accepted facts. So when we think about finding resources, we want to think about where is the best place to go to get the answers that we're asking. The library is a warehouse of resources. It's the place where experts live. If you're looking for the best answer to a question, you should go to the place that has the best answers. And let's think about what we mean by sources and resources. Let's remember that sources are always people, and resources are people and things that are useful or serve a purpose. Sometimes when we think about sources when we're writing a paper, they seem sort of abstract to us. They're books that we read and articles that we read, and we have to insert these words into our papers, but they're disconnected from us and we don't think of them as people. But if we remember that the words that we are inserting into our papers were written by people who represent organizations, who have ideas of their own, who have purposes of their own and audiences in mind to whom they are writing, then we may think again about why we want to take their words and ideas and incorporate them into our own words and our own works for our own purposes. And so we might need to be very careful about the words and the works that we incorporate into our writing projects, and be careful to evaluate the sources that we find so that we use the best ones that serve the purposes that we intend when we do our writing projects. So when you go to the library, you should be looking for people. Yes, they are sources, but the sources are people. And you want to look for the people who are knowledgeable about your subject. And people who are knowledgeable about how to find the resources that you need. So the places where you find what will be useful to you will vary. Your resource may come from the librarian who helps you locate the perfect article that's written by a person who has some knowledge of your subject. Your resource may come not from the library at all, but from talking directly to an expert in the field that you're studying. Or it may be the database that leads you to the perfect journal which has that article that answers your research question most persuasively. The key is to recognize where your help comes from, so you can go to it again, and so you can give credit when necessary. So let's look at an example of where we might find sources and resources. If you're an Alabama A&M student, this is where you should go. This is the Alabama A&M University library website. Now, I'm not a librarian. I'm just a Writing Center director. So when I'm looking for resources, I go to the experts in library science who can tell me all about the resources that are available. They can tell me all about the databases and ebooks and e-journals that they have and how to search through them and what they have available. So I can't even tell you all of the things that are here, but they can. And if I have questions, I know that I can come here to get those answers. If I don't know how to access them, if you are a student and you don't know how to get to these online databases, this is where you should go. If you click here, it will take you to a page that gives you the information for how to get access. Once you do have access, there's a wealth of resources here that you should explore based on the particular field that you are studying. One online database that I use frequently is Academic Search Premier, because it's sort of a good go-to. And what a database is basically is like a crate, if you were to think of a physical box or crate that holds multiple publications. And a database is that, a digital version of that, and it holds, as it describes here, various publications, journals, magazines, newspapers, and these have been already vetted by librarians and individuals who have determined that these are good resources and have integrity and are safe, I guess you could say, to trustworthy, to find credible information from. And it provides you with an opportunity to search your topic and subject area for information for those individuals, those people who are writing about the subject area that you are interested in studying. So I just happened to search how to treat depression in teens. Now, you would search in the search box the same way that you would in Google, whatever your key question or problem is. And you can imagine the different things that came up. Once you get the thousands of articles that pop up, what you want to do is find a way to revise and refine that search. And there's various ways to do that so that you get something that is specific to what you're looking for. You may refine it based on the dates that you are looking for, a range of dates that maybe is more recent. You might refine your search based on key terms. You might refine your search based on an article, all the articles being full text. There are various ways to refine the search. And that is where a librarian can come in and help you find specifically what you're looking for. But this is the best place to come to get the resource from a trustworthy source. So here's an example of what a results list might look like and how you can limit your results in various ways. It's important to note also when you get these results that you should pay attention to what comes back, and the title that you have, the name of the author, the title of the journal that they give you here, the date, the volume, the issue number, the page number. These are the details that you want to make note of once you find the source that captures your attention. Especially when you get the PDF full text, you want to go ahead and click on that, download that, save that, and these are the little details that you want to make sure that you are capturing in your notes, because these are the things that you'll be able to pull into your works cited page and that you'll need to pull into your works cited page. But not only that, you'll want to pull into your notes as you're taking notes on each of these sources. Remembering again that this is important because of your works cited page, but also because you need to think about who this person is and what is the context within which he or she is writing, because this person is writing in this journal, the Journal of Family Practice. So this is a person who's writing to a particular audience and for a particular purpose. And these are some of the details that we tend to skip right past because we're looking for the answer to our question and we want the information that he or she is providing, but we're not thinking about who this is and why he or she is writing it, and how that is factoring into the information that he or she is providing in this document. And that is also important. And so as we approach our research, we need to think not only about what it is that we're trying to get, but where it is that we're getting it from and how that is going to color the information that we find. And so I'm inviting us to think about research a little more deeply. And so we are doing a little bit deeper work. Again, thinking about it as a conversation. So that kind of goes right into the next point as we think about evaluating resources. And we're going to look at a video that has been put together by Western Libraries. And we'll just listen to what they have to say about evaluating resources.
If you want to succeed at your assignments or research, you should only use quality information, whether it's found in books, journal articles, or websites. Use the following criteria, also known as the CRAP test, to critically evaluate any source of information. Currency. When was the information published, updated, and/or revised? Is the information out of date for the topic? Relevance, or intended audience. How much information is presented? Does it provide a superficial treatment or a detailed analysis? Is the information related and relevant to your topic? Is the readership level appropriate, neither too simple nor too sophisticated? Authority. Not all books or journal articles in an academic library are scholarly. Who are the authors and/or editors, and what are their credentials? For journals, are articles peer-reviewed? That is, do they have the approval of other experts in the field? For books, are they published by scholarly presses, popular presses, or self-published? Accuracy and verifiability. Does the source match your understanding of the topic? Can you verify the claims in other sources? Never rely on just one source. Is there a bibliography or list of works cited? What types of sources and how many relevant sources are cited? This is an indication of the depth of the author's knowledge. Purpose and objectivity. Is the purpose stated? Is the subject approached from an objective standpoint? If not, what is the author's bias and how might it influence the information presented? Be wary, there may be more than one perspective on any given issue. Using these criteria, currency, relevance, authority, accuracy, and purpose, to critically evaluate sources of information will help ensure that you're only using quality sources of information. If you need more help with evaluating sources, visit one of our research help desks.
So as you can see, as we've spoken about already, sources are people. So understanding where the information came from is very important. And they make a very good point also. Looking at the sources that your source cites says a lot about who that person is and who they are relying on for their information. Now I understand that we love using Google, but Googling is like fishing in the ocean. There's a lot of information out there that people are sharing, and it may or may not be reliable. So you really want to look at who is putting it out there. Who is it that they are relying on for their source of information? And even in the library resources that I shared a moment ago, when you could determine the filters that you want to use for what was shared back, you can determine what kind of information you get back. And whether it's from a general source or whether it is from peer-reviewed sources. When you go out into Google, you're not able to do that kind of filtering. Whatever you get back is what you get back, and it may or may not be a good source. So that evaluation of the sources is really important so that you know what you're getting. So think of research as a scavenger hunt. Your first step is in identifying the purpose and audience that you're writing for in your own project and the problem that you're trying to solve, the question that you're trying to answer. And then based on that, you'll know then what it is that you're looking for, and that will determine how you will use each source that you find. Reading carefully is going to be very important. You want to think of reading as active rather than passive. Think of reading as studying and observing. Your sources, as I said before, could be books, articles, or experiments that you do yourself. It could be conversations that you have with individuals who are experts in the area that you're studying. The goal is to think critically and extract relevant information. Study each source to see how that source answers your key question or problem. You want to take notes on the information that you come across, and take notes carefully. Sloppy note-taking increases the risk that you will unintentionally plagiarize. As I said before, when you come across an article that has good information in it, you want to make note of where that source comes from. Who is the author? What is the source that it comes from, the database that you found it in, the name of the journal that it was published in, the publication date, and the page numbers that it was found on. Unless you have taken notes carefully, it may be hard to tell whether you copied certain passages exactly, or paraphrased them, or wrote them yourself. This is especially problematic when it's so easy to cut and paste from electronic source materials. Now you want to think about, again, how a particular source is going to function for you in the way that you're going to use it. As you find the various pieces of information, you want to think about why it is that you want to use it in some way. And this acronym BEAM may help you to think about that. Does this source provide you with background information about the subject that you're writing on? Does it provide you with evidence that something is true or not true? Does the source provide you with a perspective on this subject? Maybe it's an argument for or against it. Does it propose a theory or method for understanding the subject? That may help you to determine how you're going to use the information that you've found. As you read through each source, you also want to think about your use of that source, because ultimately this is your writing, this is your paper, this is your project. You're not writing this paper or this project just to share with us what others have said. The goal is for you to say something, for you to make an argument or a case in some way. And so thinking is really important, critically thinking through what it is that you're trying to do in this project. And so as you read and study and observe, you really want to take it in, but then figure out what it is that you want to do with it. You're not just going to repeat it back to your audience. So after the first reading of a source, see if in a sentence or two you can write the overall main point of what this person has said in your own way. After you've maybe read through it the second time, write a sentence or two summary of each section of that particular source. The idea is to really get a good understanding of what your sources have said, so that you could actually tell someone else what your sources have said without even having to look at those sources and read them directly. In fact, if you can, in your notes, create an outline of each article that you've read in your research process, that would be ideal. That would allow you to actually do the work of integrating your sources in your actual research document. The way that we integrate sources is by summarizing, paraphrasing, and quoting. A summary is when we take the main idea that someone else has said and we just say it in a shorter way. We just take the main point and sum it up in a short, sentence, maybe a paragraph if it's a longer work. And we just say in a condensed way what the other person has said. That is different from a paraphrase, which is a restatement of what was said in the original, but in a different way for the purpose of providing clarity. So when I paraphrase what someone else has said, I might actually say more because what my intention is to clarify something that maybe was complex or difficult to understand, and so I need to say more in order to make the point clear. The purpose of a summary is to condense a main point or idea and say it in a shorter way. In both, I'm saying what someone else said in my own words, but the intention is different. In a summary, I'm trying to condense it down into a shorter form, the main point, without saying everything. In the paraphrase, I'm trying to make a specific point more clear, and I may have to say more in order to do so. A quote is a word-for-word restatement of what someone else has said. When I quote someone, I must say the exact same thing that they have said, and I must put those words in quotation marks. Where I run into trouble in any of these uses of someone else's words or ideas is if I do not attribute what I have said to the original person who said it. Oftentimes when students do a summary, a paraphrase, or a quote, they run into trouble because when they summarize or paraphrase, they think they don't need to say that this came from someone else because they put it in their own words. But the idea did not originate with you, so you still have to say this idea came from someone else, even though I'm putting it in my own words. With the quote, it's absolutely improper to say what someone else said and not put it in quotation marks and attribute it. That absolutely is incorrect to do, improper to do. Any one of those is plagiarism if you don't attribute the words or the ideas to the person who said it. Now, when we talk about documentation, it's very important that we don't miss the point. And I'm going to come out of this for a moment. Actually, let's go back. We're going to look at a brief video about documentation.
Citation, the bane of writers everywhere. It's complicated and time-consuming, not to mention way less exciting than actually writing your ideas. Hi, I'm Libby from The Owl, and today we're going to talk about why we cite and why we don't all just cite the same way. Citation is important to understand because, while it's certainly not fun, we do have to do it. Plagiarism is a big deal, for one, but more importantly, citing well tells your audience that you know your subject and you can be trusted. So, that's why we cite, but why are there so many styles? APA, MLA, AMA, CMOS, IEEE, CSE, it's like alphabet soup in here. How do we know what the right style is, and why can't everyone just use the same style? Well, basically all these styles are still in use because all different fields of study have different values. In the sciences, for example, the publication date of your source really matters because if you're referring to an experiment from even 15 years ago, it might be as outdated as the computer it was written on. That's why APA, a style used frequently in the sciences, has writers include the year of publication in the in-text citation. In fields like English, though, the author and the location of the quote matter more than how current the source is, because sources don't go out of date very quickly, if ever, in this field. Therefore, MLA, the typical style in English, has writers include the author and page number in their in-text citations. This difference in value isn't just confined to academic research. Everybody cites, just in different ways. Think about the difference between citations in an online article and citations in a speech. Online, authors usually link to their sources instead of making a bibliography like you might for a typical research paper. That's because it's easier to read, for one, and it fits with the medium of the internet. When a speaker needs to cite a source, they say the relevant information. For example, Wordsworth wrote in his book Lyrical Ballads that romantic poetry is characterized by, quote, a spontaneous overflow of powerful feelings, end quote. Doing that gives credit to the source while also showing the speaker's knowledge and credibility. So our key takeaway is this. There are tons of citation styles because values differ across all of the spaces and places where people write. Hopefully understanding the principles behind citation will make it a bit less of a chore next time you're writing. I've been Libby with the Purdue Owl. Thanks for watching.
So, as you can see, documentation is important. But let's not miss the point. Documenting sources is not just about following formats. It's about the writing. Writing a research paper is about adding to your knowledge. You should read for understanding, then tell your reader what you've read. Incorporating sources is about showing the relationship between your ideas and others. How does the information you find help you to make your point or argument? At the end of the day, when we talk about citing, what we're talking about is signaling to your reader where the words or information or ideas that you have stated come from. We're wanting you to show us that what you're saying came from somewhere else, and we want you to signal to us where your use of that source begins and where it ends. In other words, to cite is to introduce and end each use of a source with appropriate documentation, to signal using a signal phrase and end text citation or footnote. It's just a way to tell the reader, I'm speaking now, someone else is speaking now, and then show the relationship of those ideas between you and the other person. Now, yes, absolutely you can use the various citation generators that exist. However, you should understand that if you aren't knowing the correct way to cite in any particular format, whether it's APA or MLA or any of the others, neither will that citation generator. So, garbage in, garbage out. If you rely specifically on them to do it correctly and there is an error, it will be wrong. You are at the mercy of those generators if you're not aware of the correct way to do it. Now, the presentation is complete, but there was one other thing that I wanted to share, and that is the presentation, the video that you looked at came from the Purdue Owl. And the Purdue Owl is a go-to site for all things APA, MLA, all things documentation. And to be honest, it is not practical to memorize how to do any of these formatting styles. Depending on what field you are in, you will become very adept at doing any one of these because by virtue of doing it over and over again. However, the styles and the formatting change over every few years because of different reasons. Every field makes the decision to make changes to them. And so if you understand the basics of documentation styles, that's what really matters. Other than that, it's more practical to just get in the habit of following directions. You know primarily the general guidelines of citing your sources, including the information that is needed for your reader to know that you are using a source, including the author's last name and signaling when you're using a source in the paper. But when you're writing a paper, what you really need to do is determine the style of the documentation and then going here to the resources that you have or to the hard copy formatting book that you have been given by your professor or required to purchase by your professor and following the directions. As I said earlier, if you know that you're using an electronic source, this is where you go. You know what type of source you have, you know how you accessed it, then you go to the instructions here for what it is that you need to include in that citation, and you simply follow the instructions. That's really what it comes down to. What matters more than anything is following the instructions and doing what is required of the research process. And of course, if you ever need help with anything writing, we're here for you. Just email us at write.place@aamu.edu and we'll be happy to help you. Have a great day.